In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues that plague the underserved and marginalized communities and how we can better help and serve them. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We've got Mr. Wayne Dawson as our guest tonight. Wayne Dawson is also known as Coach Wayne. The VIP coach is a distinguished expert in leadership and African American male development. Hailing from Kingston, Jamaica, Wayne transformed failing resorts across the Caribbean, demonstrating his capability to turn challenges into success. In New York, he showcased his youth development acumen as the campus director for the Children's Aid Dunleavy Milbank Center before taking a pivotal role at the national level with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. An alumnus of the City University of New York, Wayne holds a master's in social work from Hunter College and a bachelor's with honors from City College, where he later inspired students as an adjunct professor. As a co-founder of Harlem Men Stand Up, Wayne has significantly impacted disenfranchised Black men, earning recognition for his efforts. Since 2014, he has resided in South Florida, leading a learning and development team at a Fortune 100 company during significant growth periods. Wayne is a sought-after speaker and moderator, focusing on Black youth development and Black male empowerment. As the founder and CEO of VIP Transformative Living, LLC, he leverages his skills as a certified life coach to empower men of color through midlife transitions. Honored with recognition like Role Model of the Week by Tony Tacumbo, Etika Fernandez, and Men to Watch 2024 honoree by Black Leaders Worldwide, Wayne's dedication to coaching and guiding men towards fulfilling lives is truly commendable. Let's see. Looks like let's give me a second here. Like Wayne is having some issues getting in. Hello, sir.
Hey, Charles, good evening. I'm looking for my camera to get steady. Do you have to allow my camera?
Yeah, I see something there in the background.
So my camera isn't working. It says double camera. Let's see. Okay, hold on. I am here. But I need to take off the green. Let me go in my settings real fast. I didn't know I have a green screen. Give me 1 sec, Charles. It's not too good in taking out the green screen, is it?
Look, I see a background there.
Yeah,
a bookshelf.
Yeah, but it's supposed to take out the green screen. This is why I don't like this platform when it comes to me using my green screen. I think we had a problem last time too, didn't we?
No.
Okay, check on your side to see if there's anything you can do with camera for me at all. I don't think you would do it.
No, I can't.
Settings. Okay. Camera, let me just take a look real fast. Open private, open full screen. Source camera. Video. Nope. Mirror camera. Wow. Won't let me do it. So that's not a beautiful thing. Charles, I'm trying one more. I don't see. Video settings. And we got to use Restream, right, Charles?
We're on live.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let us get going, my friend. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were alive, you know.
Okay. So I guess we'll just hop on here into the show. And just if you could tell us what inspired you to focus on helping men navigate midlife challenges.
Absolutely. I'm you know, the work that I do, Charles, is you right. First of all, thank you for having me on, Charles. I didn't want to pass by that opportunity to thank you and for really raising attention to the work that you're doing, serving the community with enlightening brothers and sisters about social conditions and the politics of the day and the work that brothers and sisters are doing in the community. So thank you for that and the platform. Charles, the way that I see it, oftentimes youth are being blamed for not being able to do the things that the generation that we're a part of would like to see them do. And I think that given an opportunity and being taught or mentored, our youth are very, and I say youth, but I also mean millennials and Generation Zers that are not necessarily youth, but younger people than our generation. And I think given the opportunity and the show how to get the know-how, these young people will certainly carry forth what is expected of them in terms of just keeping, you know, the position of Blacks in America in a place of high regard and high standard. What is happening currently is social media has taken over that role of folks in midlife and the elderly, a position that's typically revered in ancient traditions, where those folks that are more experienced, that are, I consider, aging with saging, are able to pass on and teach that generation. Since that has been wholesomely missing, I think it is, for me, a calling to work with men in midlife to help them not only help themselves have a better second half, but also to be able to reach back and pay forward.
So, can you share a memorable success story from your work with men in midlife?
There are many stories, and I'm not at liberty to share names as a coach, as in a therapy situation. But on my website, www.viptransformativeliving.com, there are numerous videos that if someone wanted to see real life case studies, they can get to that. But I'll say that one of the stories that I'm currently having is a couple that I'm dealing with, and they're from the UK. The gentleman is about 15 years the senior to the sister, and they're having marital problems, as so many couples in our community have. And what I'm doing is helping them to identify not just the superficial, what seems to be happening, relationship issues, but the triggers. So I'm taking it all the way back to how they were parented. I'm having them take a look at the attachment around how their parents were, fathers or missing father in this case, and mothers, and the relationship that they had in terms of what they bestowed as parental love and what is expected of a man and a woman in a relationship. Having been able to identify that, I think in about week 5 or so with this couple, they're beginning to have a different level of insight and are beginning to work on themselves and take accountability before blaming each other. And I think it's there's hope.
So, what are some common misconceptions about midlife crises?
That it's a white person's issue, and that only women have midlife crisis. A lot of brothers go through, and especially right now, Charles, where testosterone level in men is at an all-time, since it's been recorded, an all-time high. A lot of young men at age 30 are suffering from lower testosterone than their previous generation counterparts. But not only that, there are other issues that are happening based on our economy and the world we live in that are causing men, and I here I'm going to refer to Black men because that's who I work with, if that's okay with you. Thank you. That are causing our men to take a second look at following the rules. They have been following these rules all their lives. They go to school, they get a degree, they get a career, they do the right thing. They're not in jail, they're not out there hustling. And yet they can't seem to get the mark. They chase shiny objects. They're chasing these 6 and 7 figures. They're looking for higher level positions, and they are not happy even when they attain these goals. There's something missing, a level of fulfillment, a level of significance, a level of legacy building and contribution. And so it usually takes place around midlife when they've realized that, hey, half my life just about has been going ahead, and there's still, because we live to like 80 years now, right? There's still another half left. Why is it that I'm not feeling fulfilled? Why is it that when I go home, I feel estranged in my own house with my children and my wife and my dog Spot? Nobody seems to have that relationship with me, but I'm building an empire outside. Is it worth it? Is there more? There's got to be more. And so that crisis is real, not to mention the fact that brothers are beginning to realize that the things that they could do when they were 10 years younger, 15 years younger, like, run several laps around the track without stopping, like, carry all the grocery in at one time, that they are not able to do those things. And so it dawns on them that I'm getting older, and it may, in many instances, cause severe emotional stress, duress, depression. The highest level of suicide rates in the Black community is men in their midlife.
Wow. So would this be considered more like something that's physically, and if it's physically, is that something that's genetic that causes that issue?
Now, genetics, we may be predisposed to some stuff, and a lot of things are being blamed on genetics. Environment is really what it's about. We can change and as it were, entrain our genetics, including transmitters. The brain is a creature of habit. It's like a muscle. If you train it, you gain it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so it is true in terms of practices. In Black communities, oftentimes what we call generational issues come about because that's what we know, that's what we've seen, that's what we've been exposed to. So when kids travel and go away for school or travel early because they're afforded to do this, as in the case of middle class America and white America, oftentimes they see a different environment, a different reality. They have a different idea of positive possibilities. And so they don't come back and repeat the same dynamisms that have affected and infected our communities. They demand change because they see change, they expect change, and they do change.
Okay. So then is it like and let's say in that situation, are they like so is there like something that goes, shall I say, missing in the environment as the man gets to midlife that's actually causing him to maybe like lose interest or have these issues, or what more is the environment actually doing that takes away this stamina or whatever have you?
Well, it's not just speaking to that. The reality is, well, biologically, we are going to age, right? Biologically, it's not inevitable that we have to become decrepit and we can't move and function. Again, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I'm 62 years old, and I recognize that there are things that takes much more effort, but I wouldn't say that I'm in worse fitness shape than I was 10, 15 years ago. Why? Because now that I don't take it for granted, I put the effort out to get my workout in. I'm a vegan, so I try to eat better than I used to. I've been a vegan for a long time, but I'm much more intentional about the things that I put into my mouth. My peace of mind means a lot more to me. What I am referring to is saging rather than aging, becoming wise using your lived experience and using the information and knowledge that you have garnered and gathered over the years to make it work for you. You can move and become an old goat or an old fool by still repeating the same experiences that you have had for the last 25 years. You haven't grown up. You've just simply repeated life year by year. But if you start taking advantage of the fact that you're seeing more because you've been around for longer, then you can add that to, aging wisely, as it were. Mm-hmm. And so what has happened, I think, in a lot of cases, midlife crisis comes upon us. Yes, we question ourselves. A lot of time we want to keep our youth, capture our youth, but we also don't recognize that we can slide into it much more gracefully. Not that we are rejecting it, but there are things we can do to feel good about ourselves and to empower ourselves as we get older.
Well, so with that being said, how do you help men redefine their purpose during midlife?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a mindset. It's all mindset. All aspects of our development is about whether you have a growth mindset or a limited mindset. And so the way we speak to ourselves, as we oftentimes do, the language and the words we use, words are truly magical. They're powerful or not. They can destroy you, they can create you, or they can sustain you. And so once you start saying, I am, you are predicting an outcome of how you should be based on a new being, an identity, something you've taken on. So if you say, for example, I'm an old man, then you will actually take on the characteristics, and that's the way you're going to show up. And so that's how people are going to treat you. If you say that you're a wise, mature man, it speaks differently to your psyche. Your unconscious then takes on the frame of a wiser, conscious, informed man. And so the world sees you as such. And because the world sees you as such, it reinforces the belief system and you start operating as such. So I help men to change their limiting beliefs about what it means to be aging. And look, you're not competing with the rest of the world. Your only competition, Charles, is yourself. And so once you put aside the need that you should be running 100 meters the speed of a kid who is 22 years old, then that's part of the battle that's already won.
Ooh, well, that would be crazy talk, but I understand exactly what you mean. But we do have some people that actually think they could keep up with those young kids like that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that thought. I mean, positive reinforcement is always good because, as you say, when you speak that, especially to yourself, then it actually helps you to feel better. So, with that being said, though, can you tell us, let's say, I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm my own worst critic, and I know I'm not perfect, but I'm my own worst critic.
Yes, sir.
So, is it so are you basically saying that there's times where, let's say, I may be needing to, or I'm doing something and something happens and I just criticize myself for it really badly. If I criticize myself, and let's say if I said something that actually is negative, how does that negativity affect me both mentally and physically?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, you've heard of affirmations, correct?
Yes.
And if you're a man of faith, you've heard of prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way those work is they send signals to the brain that gives you hope. Mm-hmm. And when you are moving with that, you secrete a different set of hormones because you're in a state of what we call eustress, which is different from distress. That fires another set of hormones, which to us can result in a level of what we call toxicity within the body. Stress brings about duress on us. Mm-hmm. And so by sending signals through affirmations, through positive thinking, through hope, rather than despair, our entire system responds accordingly. It's kind of, if you are I have a cousin who is recovering right now from what was given to him as stage 4 cancer of the prostate that spread all over his body. Well, he's been absolutely 100% positive in his outlook for his outcome because he's a man of faith and he prays and his community prays with him every day. He doesn't engage people who are negative. He doesn't want stories about treatment that didn't work or people who died as a result. And so for the last 2.5 months, 3 months, that's all he's done, surrounded himself in that. And so, he's moved on with his life as if there is going to be life at the end of the tunnel. And so he is into his 7th week. In fact, today he has his 8th session of chemo, and he's been doing them every 2 weeks. And his numbers from 500, his PSA, is down to 1.7 at 7. The doctor said to him, the cancer is not in your body. How did that happen? And some people will say it's a miracle. But if you're a man of faith, as he is, you'll say it's a possibility in terms of God's work and my belief in managing myself as a member of a divine race of people, right? The human race. And so how you see now, there are others who go in and tell themselves, I am sick, I am sick. And you really, your body listens to you and sends out distress signals. And, you know, in hypnosis, for example, it's a heightened state of suggestion. If we start saying to someone often enough, you look awful, you're sick, even if the person is not, and they start buying into that, guess what happens, Charles?
What happens?
They become ill because they tell themselves they are.
So that means that they spoke that into existence.
Because you condition yourself to believe that this is so. And remember, the brain is the executive leader or functioner of the entire system, right? So if the brain is saying to you, man, you are sick, then you fall into place, you're in bed, you can't function, you start really telling the tale of being ill. And so you align, you become congruent with what you believe. They say belief kills and belief cures. And so the work that I do with men is to change their limiting beliefs, the way they see themselves, the things, and I may sometimes have to go deeper than just today for the purpose of exploring what it is in your past that you have anchored and recorded as a truth that doesn't serve you anymore. And if it's that you're not good enough, I have something I call the Paul syndrome, right? That I see at some level in all men that I work with. In fact, all humans that I've worked with, because I work with couples as well, just so you know, if there are couples that are having issues. And it's called the Paul syndrome because it speaks to people feeling that they have lost hope because they have no sense of true possibility. This is not possible for me, right? It's learned hopelessness. That's the P. Or ability, the A. They think they don't have the ability to pull through, to make something happen. And that's learned helplessness. And the third thing which afflicts the majority of Black families, Black men that I deal with, is the W, which is worthiness or worthlessness in the case of the men I see. They don't think that they're worthy enough. They're not deserving. And where did this come from? This is because that's what our environment tells us. That is the society we live in, and generationally it's passed on, where we think we're not good enough. And unless we can reframe and rewire and change that language of belief, then our thoughts, our words, our actions, our habits, our outcomes, our personal reality, or our personality, that is our identity, will remain the same. We have to get out of that thinking. I call it stinking thinking.
Oh, wow. So what role does self-awareness play in overcoming midlife challenges?
Well, self-awareness is all about just, it's an intentionality. It's, you know, being open to the idea that we're greater than our name, our job. We are a whole institution of selfhood, that we are born of greatness, that we have a divine spirit in us. And so we are meant, each of us, with intention to serve a purpose. Oh, and self-awareness is just to wake up to that. You know, the politicians of today, when we as a people were talking about wokeness and being woke, that was about self-awareness of ourselves, our position, and our relationship with the society, right? And now they've taken that to mean something entirely different, almost like a curse word, which is, again, part of the technology. See, when we talk about and training our folks to have a certain sense of being and behavior and purpose, understand that education, the media, and even the dogmas in some of our cultures around religion and other things have done a number on us. And we have lost our true sense of identity and purpose.
Oh, wow. Now that's really deep. So like in that situation, I mean, because that sounds like something that could be really, really bad. So let's say coming into midlife, and if these things are going on, especially from a psychological perspective, what has to happen to pull these men from that situation?
It happens because, like all other transitions in our life, now this is not the only crisis we deal with, right? There is the crisis as adolescents,
Right.
teenagers. We go through that, and that's around the fact that teenagers are, if you don't mind, permit me, I'll just walk you through the stages. So at the teen
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
we are accustomed to belonging to a family structure, as it were, meaning mama and daddy told us
Right.
how to get dressed. They gave us the values. In the first 7 years, it's called imprinting, right? We look around and our early caregivers sort of imprint on us what's important, what the values are. We didn't question it. We just assumed that this is how parents act and this is how we're spoken to. You know, we hear no's all the time, so we figure we're not good enough. Or we hear a great boy, or we figure. And then between, say, 7 and 14, early adolescence, we are going through more of a modeling. Teachers model for us, Sunday school teachers model for us, uncles and aunts model for us behaviors. So we're learning, we're looking at each other as men to men. And if you're raised by women, you're thinking a lot of, this is why women can raise children very well, obviously. They can raise their sons, but they cannot raise their sons to be men. And that's a argumentative area. I won't get into it right now, but men got to model men.
Yeah.
And so this is happening. And then between 7 and say early 20s, the prefrontal cortex, the area, the seat of rational thinking, is not yet totally formed. So organically, our brain is still stunted in terms of being able to think like an adult. It's the reason why in the days gone by, they didn't try you for an adult crime if you were 17, 18, 19 years old, right? It's the reason why in most countries you can't get a license till you're like 18, and you can't drink till you're a certain age, and you can't own a gun till you're a certain age. Unless you're Black and they want to make sure you get treated like a man, but when you do a crime. But for the most part, what's happening is you're functioning with the older brain, the limbic brain, and you're quick to react. So the first stressor that you have in terms of a crisis is, as a teenager, you're trying to find yourself. You're moving away from the identity that was created and given to you by your early caregivers, and that is a crisis. Getting out of that, it's like a caterpillar or a catalyst breaking into the next mode before it becomes that butterfly. And then there's a quarter life crisis. So now you're out of school and you're looking for your first job, and you have to prove to yourself you can live on your own. May have your first real girlfriend that lives with you, or just starting your family. You know, you're beginning to test your shield and your sword in the real world. And so now that crisis is, how am I doing? Am I competing? Can I get up in there and start making a statement? You know, I want to own a home and be that man. I want to be a father. And so that is a crisis again, and that's happening, later on. The quarter life is happening in your late 20s into your mid 30s. And then the midlife crisis is happening, say, for most people around 40s and beyond in that decade, because now you're seeing the vulnerabilities of people you went to school with. They're dying, they're getting older too. You're seeing your parents die, or you need to take care of them. They're coming home. Your kids are beginning to fly the coop or wherever they are, depending on how soon you started kids. So now you're in a state where you're saying, I've chased all the golden stuff, and somehow, a lot of times, I'm still not quite where I am. And you're looking around and you're saying, oh, Am I ready for retirement? Do I have enough put away? Oh, Johnny is living a good life. Such and such is happening. You now start comparing yourself and wondering, and that crisis is real. And then you're realizing too that you're losing the head of hair that you once had, that attracted your partners in the past with your beautiful mane of hair, and now you have none. You're bald, you're gray, you're all this stuff. You're getting flabs, and you're losing that youthful appearance, right? Can't see your toes, not to mention touch it. And so now you're questioning the whole idea of your value and your worth. And that's a crisis that sometimes, and a lot of men, unfortunately, they're with a situation, but rather than, a partnership or a whatever you call it, a situationship, and instead of focusing on that one, they go out to the last attempt at conquering the world. Let me see. Let me go get these young girls now to prove my worth. They go out there, you hear the story of the shiny new car that they buy with the convertible this and the big mufflers or the motorcycle. They're going back through this one last effort to prove that I'm still virile and I'm a man. And that is true in many instances. And, if you have somebody, a partner that understands and recognizes that these crises will happen and are able to be patient and go through it with you and not judge you or hate you for it, then you might get through unscathed. But oftentimes, it's when you spend a lot of money buying foolishness that you don't need to prove a point to people who don't care about you, right? And you wind up later on with if I woulda, coulda, should, and so the work that I do is to help men to reframe and recondition their way of thinking about that stage and to recognize that that's a rich stage of your life because you're still young enough to be able to do greater things than before with all the information and experience and richness that you have garnered over the years, Charles. And you're not that old that you can't help yourself, right? So you're in a great golden space to make it happen, to just do it. And I tell brothers, this is a time to really envision your greatest self and to position yourself to go get it. This is a time for me, Charles, I fired corporate America. And not only did I fire corporate America, I burned the boats on the shores like Cortez did, right? And so there's no returning. But here's what I have, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I have the most wonderful queen and support in the world that's making sure that even if I fall short as an entrepreneur, which happens if you're an entrepreneur, because there's no guarantee and there's certainly not a W-2, you got to go out there and fight for it. And every day is another day, right? And so as I'm going out and doing that, there's some moments of uncertainty. There is harvest, season for harvest, and a season for sowing, and a season for just planting seeds. And so Audrey, my wife, she holds down many a day as we go through the building and the creating to make it happen. And then when there is abundance and harvest, we all share, right? But so the crisis that I would say that a lot of men encounter oftentimes has to do too with who they surround themselves with. In a book that I oftentimes refer, Charles, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He dedicates a whole area in that book around what he calls sexual transmutation. And in sexual transmutation, he speaks directly to men in that category. And he says that, of the 500 successful men in the world that he studied over a 20-year period, right? He recognized that success happened in the later years, real success happened in the later years. And significantly, when those men had settled in with their one significant love. In other words, they had stopped planting wild oats. They had gotten to a place where they could focus and concentrate their energy, because we're creators by way of our being, right? Humankind, man. And so what we have been able to do now at 40 or ripe age and beyond, and think about all the great achievers that happened after 40, success, right? And so at that point, you can refocus that sexual energy into creative force that brings about enterprise, entrepreneurism, business, success, wealth.
You know, I mean, this is like really, really great because I'm sure that people are picking up all this good stuff. But I just want to
Yes,
ask
sir.
one more follow-up question, and that is, where does the ego play its part in that? Because a lot of this sounds
Powerful.
like ego.
So the ego can serve us in some ways, but one of the things, and it's such a powerful question, and I'm glad you asked it because I would have probably missed sharing. When I work with brothers in corporate and beyond, corporate, government, brothers in the world of non-for-profit, the military. I served in non-for-profit for a decade and a half as a leader for one of the country's most renowned non-for-profits, right, in New York. And I learned these lessons after. And then I went into corporate and worked for a corporate 50 as another leader. I learned these lessons after, some during. But the ego is going to speak to you, trying always to save and protect you. Ego doesn't want to see you get smashed. And one of the things you have to do as a leader, whether it's at home, in your own space, or among others, is to first to take ownership. The buck stops here. So that removes the blame game. It's not your friend's fault, your wife's fault, your dog's fault, the white man's fault. You got to take ownership. These things may be true and happening, but how you respond, what we call responsibility, your ability to respond, is what is going to create a different outcome. So taking ownership. And then ego. You got to put the ego to sleep. And in so doing, what you allow to happen is your divine essence comes through. The unconscious light that drives who you are, and brothers like to say, and whose you are, right? So you allow that to come through by stilling that ego that says, oh, no, man, you can't do that. Brother, you can't talk to me that way. I'm a man. Forget about that stuff. Humble yourself and allow the ego to go to sleep long enough for you to hear that inner calling, that inner voice. And see, VIP Transformative Living, my company that helps to raise the level and consciousness of brothers like you and I, regular brothers. I see executives, but for me, I work with the ordinary man because we are it. All right. And VIP, exactly. I spent a lot of time thinking about that. I've had that idea for a while, and it really came into fruition when the company started. It's about values, identity, and purpose. My philosophy when I work with across the board with anybody is to work on beliefs and values, your core values. Once we can get you to own and identify what those are and walk in step with what they are, in other words, don't sell out and compromise on your values and your beliefs, then the next thing is to own a sense of truth with who you are, not with who you want people to think you are or you are told you are, but your true I am. And this is a lot of work. And this is where we talk about putting aside the ego for a minute. And a lot of brothers end the relationship there because they don't want their raw self to be ever exposed. So they rather live a lie and never accomplish their fullest level. That's work. To find your I am and to claim it. Now, Brother Charles, if you have a sense of who you are, and I help brothers to step into the person they want to be before they even get there. If you know who you are and you are living in order with your core values, then your purpose, which is an assigned divine calling, finds you. It comes knocking at the door. So a lot of times we spend half our life trying to figure out our purpose. I don't know. This is not what I want to do. I just don't feel, I went to school to do this because my parents paid for it. Or this was the first job I got because I had kids when I was young. And so I kept it, but now I'm not happy. Your purpose finds you once you're in alignment with your core values and you're who you are. So your values and your identity must be in alignment, and your purpose comes knocking.
Wow. So how do you address the emotional and psychological aspects of midlife transitions?
It depends on the level of damage and trauma, psychologically and emotionally. My wife is a licensed therapist in the state of Florida, in fact, in several states. And so there are folks that I may, if they have a diagnosis, I may say, are you seeing your therapist? Because that's their piece. And if the therapist is okay with you seeing me as a coach, then we can do the work on some other stuff. In coaching, we oftentimes will go back and look at what has happened to you psychologically or emotionally in terms of damage or impact or an effect in the past. But again, if it's beyond us, we know you have to see someone else. And sometimes people even have to be medicated. But let's move past that and say you are stuck in a space because you just don't feel good about yourself. You have these images about not being good enough because you were with a abusive home as a foster child where people just made you feel like trash. If you're doing therapy along with coaching, it's even more powerful because now I can help you to coach you up. Coaching is not me telling you and advising you. So let me clear this up. Coaching, the coach, a good coach is not gonna come in and give you a prescription and tell you how to be. What a coach, from what I've garnered, and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars to learn to be coached well enough to be able to say this. What a coach is gonna do is guide you to find your inner resourcefulness. In other words, you and I have the answers that we need to turn us around tomorrow morning. Let me say it again. It's not a mystery. It's nothing you need to spend a university degree for. People need the support because they want an accountability partner, and they sometimes want people to encourage them with the how. But it's in us. If we knew the answers oftentimes and we had the discipline, then we would jump out and do it. How many people you know, Charles, that want to lose weight? Do you know anybody?
Ooh,
want to stop smoking? Anybody?
Well, no, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Folks that smoke.
But any other habits you think of? People are stuck in their habits, not because they don't know they should do better or change it. And they do know how, but oftentimes the prompting, it's like the coach is your AI. We will give you the prompts, right? And help you to figure out how to find the resourcefulness. And that resourcefulness we're talking about can be without external resources. Sometimes it's all within. So it's not necessarily giving you resources, even though as a coach, I have an abundance of resources that I can support you with. So in between sessions, for example, you can put pragmatic exercises in place to test yourself and best yourself. But that's what we do as coaches. You know, you talked about blind spots. I think it was a conversation with you, or maybe I had a conversation earlier with another brother. We literally just hold up a mirror to you and circle you with a mirror so you can see your behind and your front and your sides, and you say, oh shoot, I didn't know I had a scratch right here. Oh look, I got a dent, I need polish right, look at that. And then I'll say to you, so what do you think you're gonna do about that scratch? Oh, I don't know, but if you did know, oh, maybe I'll get a buffer on it. And what does it take to get a buffer? Oh, I gotta go to the 99-cent store. So what does it take to get to the 99 store? Oh, nothing, I can just order it online. Why don't you order it online? See, I just coached you up, right? And that's exactly what a good coach does. And so you come up with the answers. And let me tell you something. If I told you tomorrow morning to go run a lap so you can, and stop eating 5 meals a day so you can lose weight, you might agree with me because you want me to feel good and, you know, satisfy that, oh yeah, you're working hard and I'm paying attention. But if you came up with it yourself, which one you think is more likely to comply?
Oh, that's a good question.
But what's the answer?
That now, I don't know. I have to think about that in more than one way because I can see that in a lot of different ways. I mean, that's just me. So I don't know if that's actually how I should be looking at that, but I can see that in a lot of different ways. How it just, I mean, okay, let me just ask you this before you move on with that. So can you just tell me, like, in answering a question like that, what are some of the primary things should I be thinking of in order to move forward?
Authenticity, being your truth. Yes. So
Okay.
What I would be provoking is insight from the client, you. So when I asked you, hey, you know, just now the question was, if I told you the answer in terms of what you need to do to lose weight and just said, this is what I think you should do. I mean, how many people have heard that from their doctors since they've been going and they're still overweight? Versus them getting up and saying, you know, I'm not going to cook so much steak every week. Right? And I think I am actually going to go to the gym in the mornings once a week and block it, or twice a week rather than block it. If they came up with that, and they would be more likely to make it happen, because now you can't fool yourself. You can fool the good old coach because he's not living with you. I'm holding you as an accountability person. So come Monday, if you've gone all week and not gone to the gym, you force yourself into the gym. But if it's raining, you're like, oh man, I'll just tell coach I went. But you feel bad to yourself if you lied to yourself. So part of coaching is to call on you to come up with the resolve. Now I can guide you and I can help you and I can give you information if you give me permission to do that so you can be more informed. But ultimately, I want to empower you to take control of your life so that you can get the results that you desire for yourself. And so that you can break the habits that you know are harmful to you. In the end, you have full agency of your life. We all do.
So accountability of your plans.
I give 150% accountability to all my clients, but I'm there and I'm truly there to support them in between and during the work. And when they give me permission to push them a little bit, I'm pushing them. If they give me to push harder, I'll push. But I realize that when I stop pushing, they got to be moving. If the only momentum they got is when I push in, I'm doing the work, they're not. They got to do more pushing than I do.
Right. I like that. I like that. What strategies do you recommend for men to maintain a healthy work-life balance during midlife?
It's powerful. Again, Charles, you came laden with some questions for me today. I think it's a myth or a misnomer that there's such a thing as work-life balance. And it sounds trite to say this, but there is nothing truly that's a balance when it comes to work-life. While you're building success in a business, you truly are not finding a balance. You're going to have to spend a lot more time focused on doing that. When you've gotten to that success, a lot of people spend time sustaining it. Other people then relax it a little bit, outsource it, duplicate themselves through systems, and then can find time to be working on the personal stuff. So for me, it's work-life integration. It's finding when to get appropriate sleep and when to not take the day off so that you can apply as needed to meet your prospects' outcome or expectations, or that sort of thing. So the question is, how do I help people to gear up for that? Again, when you're working with purpose, mission driven, and it's important that I give my clients several things. There's one of the tools we use is sort of a life balance tool where you look at the dimensions in your life, your spirituality, your work or career, your health and wellness, your family and friends, those kinds of things, right? And if you looked at a wheel, for example, right? A wheel has several spokes, and you were to inflate by way of a percentage of the whole wheel, each segment of what I just mentioned, you'll find that for some people, work is all the way up here, 10% or whatever the maximum is. Then you may find that their level of entertainment or personal life or activity is only 2%. And as they go around, so imagine if you were to drive that wheel, how it would be bumpity, because it's not even, it's not balanced. Well, you may not get perfect balance, but when you look at a graphical situation like that with your own life, you'll be able to say, well, I got to inflate a little bit more of this section, or deflate a little bit of this one to bring it closer to rotundity. That makes sense. With me, Charles? So as you look at your life, clearing your face, you're going to notice that there are some aspects of your life that have not been getting attention, like your wife or your husband or your children or your spiritual relationship, right? And if that's not getting enough attention, then it's going to give. Anywhere you have attention being given, where attention flows or energy flows, it grows. And so if you're continuously just putting everything into work and work and work, not only will probably work grow, but at a certain point, if you're not balancing that, as they say in common terms, then you could blow a fuse.
Well, I have to tell you, that's one of those things that's very relative to myself. And I'm actually, right now, that was one of the things coming into 25 is to try to work out a balance. Because that is like, that just true as you say it, that is a really hard thing to do. And so, I've got a plan for that, but I mean, that's really interesting to hear you put
Charles,
it.
I'm going to send you some tools. I want to send you some tools on me, on the house, for you to do some work on that.
That's interesting. No, that's really interesting, though. Because sometimes when you have that intentions, just by.
Yeah.
How do you help men cope with physical changes that come with aging?
How do I cope with it?
Yeah.
Charles, I've gone through a lot, man. I've survived on more than one occasion life-threatening illnesses, and pulled through again with the grace of God and with the faith in terms of knowing that I have the ability to help to cure myself by a system of belief and in addition to that, I do write by myself. Right now, for example, I'm talking to you, and I was sick as a dog all day. And yesterday, I went to urgent care yesterday because I came up with this cough over the weekend. I'm like, where did this come from? Turns out that I got some kind of bronchial something, I don't even know, acute thing, that the cough was just being triggered and I couldn't control. So I was doing the old Jamaican trick of honey and lime, garlic, and what else is it? Ginger, and a bunch of stuff. And that was working slowly, but I had several client calls that I wanted to make and I couldn't talk. So my wife said, go to the urgent care. So I went to urgent care and they gave me antibiotics and some stuff to manage my cough, which is funny that I haven't coughed since we started this session, because right before this meeting, I was coughing up a storm. So anyway, just goes out of mind, So how do I do it? Part of what needs to happen is you got to see yourself and claim. So listen to this, Charles. You got to claim health. You got to claim who you are. We talk about identity, the power of words. Words are truly magical, right? Mm-hmm. And I have here a little note. I was working on a course with my buddy, and the note says, the word idem is a Latin word that is the same root for the word. It means the same, and it's the same root of the word identify, right? So when someone says they identify, it really means you are the same as me. That's the power of words in terms of derivatives. And there are more words that come out of that are truly powerful, that when you say them, you don't realize what the roots mean, but they resonate. And it's like the name, power of the name. When a person in a traditional Native Americans or African cultures name their children, it's supposed to, as it were, resonate with your sense of self, the characteristic of the persons whose name came before you that you were named after. So if your name is King, you're supposed to act like a king. Right. The name resonates, right? Mm-hmm. So when we are in a place of wellness, we need to resonate wellness in terms of how we speak. So if I said to you, I am feeling ill right now, it doesn't say I am ill. I don't take on the persona of illness. Yes. It's a transient situation, which means I have power over illness because it's only temporal. Mm-hmm. But if I said I am ill, what am I saying? I'm identifying, meaning I am the same as illness, as I just said in terms of the derivative. Mm-hmm. So I have taken on the permanency or the persona of illness. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it earlier. So what does that do? It makes everything inside my psyche and my biological, chemical essence transition to a space of illness.
It brings it into fruition.
It brings it to reality.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for men who feel stuck or unfulfilled in their careers during midlife?
The metrics that we're using sometimes are corrupt metrics in that they're given to us by someone else. Look, first we're going to examine, are you truly stuck? Well, and again, your I am, your identity of who you are and who you should be, we're going to make sure that that's not corrupted by, smeared by what the media says or your parents says or somebody else says. And we're going to also take a great long look at the values. Do your values align and match with those of the organization that you work with or for? Are you, if one of your values are total honesty and integrity, and you're working for some folks that are scammers, then let it go. So being stuck is really about having some alignment. However, I help men to understand that, look, when you look at core values, a lot of time your core values, people think, oh yeah, I need a bigger job, bigger money. And a lot of younger, immature professionals think this way. I belong to organizations that talk that talk. It means nothing unless brothers got to go through it. I'm 62, man. I've been there, done that. I understand that sometimes that's important initially. But at the end of the day, nobody dies and says on their deathbed, man, I wish I gave 5 more hours at the job. Mm-hmm. People want quality relationships. Mm-hmm. People want peace of mind and good health. That's what really matters at the end. And so I ask people, brothers that I work with, and now I'm working with sisters, I'm asking them too, what does stuck really mean? Because if what you're talking about is to have the wherewithal to live without feeling like you're in a hustle, if you had an income producing property or a job somewhere offline mm-hmm. from your 9 to 5, right? Mm-hmm. And I call 9 to 5 just over broke. It keeps you just over broke. You ain't gonna get rich doing it. But if you had a 9 to 5 where you're settled in, and that's all you had as an income, which they can pull the plug on you any day, and you're seeing it right now with this administration. Mm-hmm. You guys are suspended, no more DEI, everybody stays home. Hey, listen, you all want to resign tomorrow, you can resign. I'll give you a little something. Out of nowhere, these people's lives are going to be changed overnight. But when you have those kind of positions, right? And we're merciful and we're grateful that we have jobs. But when that's what we depend on, Charles, we have to say, what if we had an income coming somewhere else that could sustain us because it covers your day-to-day cost, right? Your activities just to maintain day-to-day, your bills. Then everything else, as we say in Jamaica, would be brought up. Everything else would be extras, yours. You wouldn't be stressed. So you wouldn't necessarily need $1 million or $2 million. You just want to make sure that you can cover your expenses and then you can have something else. For some people, that could be $90,000. For others, $100,000. For others, even less, depending on what your situation is. So you have to be able to truly evaluate what your values are and what your needs are. Mm-hmm. Again, we got to help to give us a different perspective than the ones that we've probably been traveling with that has not served us, caused us early heart failure, strokes, and mental health issues.
So how can men in midlife build strong relationships with their families and communities?
Another good question, Charles. I don't have all the answers, and I never did. And part of what I give thanks for is that I was blessed coming from parents that believed in family. And so my father and mom, who were together for over 40 years before he expired on her lap one Sunday afternoon after dinner, from a massive heart attack, thinking that he was having indigestion. They had dinner together every year while my mom gave birth to me, I think, age 39 or 40, right? My father was 1 year older than she was. My parents were born in the early 20s. They would have been 101 or 102 today, had they been alive. But my crowning glory was the love that I saw in my family. And then my 2 sisters who are older than I, we to this day call each other several times a week. This to me was what was my superpower. And so as a man, I wanted to replicate that in my household. And so I tried to do everything possible, even with my ex situation and outsiders and steps and in-laws and all that. For me, it's about family and togetherness. I strive and work very hard to lead and to be part of a wonderful, thriving, blended family. Mm-hmm. And when my family sits together, celebrating each other, you think you're at a United Nations meeting. Different creeds and color and this, you know, sexual preferences, all everything is going on. My ex, you know, she remarried to a wonderful lady, and she lives in another part of the country, but we still can get together, and there is love among us, right? And so my new wife and the children that she brought in and grandchildren, all of us, the respect. And how do we do this? I think I set the pace, the expectation, the agenda, but I had to show up and turn up like that man to get that respect. And along the way, I learned from my kids, because I was this doting father that came from this old school, do it this way, this is how I rule, Ayatollah, I'm telling you I'm the boss. And the kids was like, this ain't gonna work. And my wife, Audrey, of 10 years, she's like, I can't come home from fighting the battles out there and feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I left a spoon in the sink. Come on now. Get a grip, because then I won't be coming home. And my kids were like, Dad, I'm not calling you or coming over because I just take my feet out of the couch. What do you mean? And I had to back up and say, yo, these are my rules, but they aren't necessarily the rules. And so I had to back up and say, hey, be yourself, be free, be you. And let me learn to accept you being you. And if I'm consistent enough to show up being that guy, eventually some of what you might do is meet me halfway. And so if you know I don't like certain things and place to look a certain way, since I'm not bitching anymore, you start pitching in more often. Because now it's not resenting and fighting and pushing back, because nobody wants to be told what to do all the time, especially. So after a while, people just fell in place, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. People really are calling me on a regular. I don't even have to say, hey, I didn't hear from you. I'm like, they love their dad.
Right.
And Audrey is like, I can't get away from my husband. I come home, I'm turning around, she's my shadow, you know. Hey, girl, go get some sleep. I'm reading. And so it has worked for me. And to answer your question, I'm writing this book. I've been saying this a long time. If people have been listening to my interviews, they're saying, you've been writing a long time, but that's because I keep putting it down. But Charles, hold me accountable. I'm writing this book on when the shift hits the man. And it's about these changes that we got to go through, but how we as men have got to make the shift internally before the external world responds. We have full agency to create the lives we want.
Wow. That's something, you know, like I said, that has got to be, I'm sure that once you've completed that project, that is definitely got to be one of those that you've got to do a book launch for that.
Yes, sir.
That's meaningful. That is like, especially for those that like a step or two below age-wise from where you and I are, that's going to be very impactful for them. Because making that adjustment coming into real manhood is going to be really, really serious.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll make this transition, and I'm sorry that, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, we took up a lot here going with the men in midlife, but which was, I mean, you could talk about this forever and a day. But I know that there are some other things that that you are working on, and some other things that you work with your clients on, especially with the things that are happening today. And let's transition over into, you know, from leadership, and let's just talk about how leadership plays its part when we talk about the DEI situation.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work with what you do?
Well, in this country, and I want to be very clear, and I said in my promoting today's show on my own sites, LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm taking the gloves off, no holding back.
Exactly.
America doesn't love us. Black folks in this country been holding on to a hope. We built this country. This country has never prospered except in times of slavery and during war periods. This has been a country heavily indebted anytime else. And so war is a business, even manufacturing wars.
Mm-hmm.
But the greatest war that the Black American has faced is not with an external foe. It's right here home in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't ask to be here for the most part. I mean, today, a lot of folks like myself decided to come and live here. And I want to say that my family's here. I'm vested here. I've built so many years of work here, paid taxes here, and this now is home. But we were sold a lie about what to expect. And you're in a what they call a third world, but a developing country, through propaganda. Similarly here too, by the way, the media here does not tell the truth in terms of who we are as a people. See, the only difference between Black folks across the diaspora and those right here in the United States and even in the motherland is that different ships took us to different ports, but we're all in the same boat right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you go, Black folks are being mistreated or lied to about their value and their worth and their sense of greatness and their potentials. And when this happens, I can only say it's because those who oppress and continue to lie to us are doing a reverse psychology on themselves and portraying it on us. In other words, they have a feeling of insecurity and a sense of worthlessness and a sense of inferiority. That's their complex. Yep. So they have created this artificial thing called white supremacy. Mm-hmm. So they can lie behind the truth of their own failures and become great. They've created a history about greatness of whom they are, which when you think about it, really has nothing to stand for itself. And so we are in this place, and the base of the folks who recently have become leaders in this country as elected leaders, I put elected here in quotes. These folks, their base are the very, I say this, and it may sound like an insult, but it's more a fact. They're the least educated and researched and read and intelligent human beings in the country. And there are the folks in rural America that feel they have the most to lose by Blacks and other people of color that are here. So when you say to them, oh, those N-word people are coming to take your jobs and they're gonna look at your daughter and she gets pregnant, they are scared as heck, right? And then they feign and hide under the premise of being good Christians.
Oof.
Holier than thou. And they're dangerous. I'll even say they're wicked. And they're riding around again, not just in white cloaks, but in blue uniforms with badges. And we have to call it for what it is and be real and recognize that's what we face in this America, spelled with 3 Ks. And so a lot of times we want to belong and own it, and that's fine, but we need to belong and own ourselves. My mentor, and I adore him, Len Jeffries, from back in the day, he taught about the 3 C's of black folks and versus the 3 Ds of white folks. White folks functions on a premise of death, domination, and destruction. Everywhere they go in their wake is death, domination, and destruction. They come in and they try to dominate. They can't work alongside whomever they found there as indigenous people, even when it comes to climate change. The reason we're having this issue is because white folks in their capitalistic way want to dominate the universe. They want to kill everything on the planet Earth, not realizing that it feeds into itself. And so after a while, if you take away the greenery, you don't have food to eat, and you don't have the air to breathe, and you have an issue with the weather.
Mm-hmm.
They wanna destroy. It's all about that. The need to control, conquest, conflict. Those are their theses, where people of the land, people who think in the terms of abundance, people who know that there's a relationship with the divine and the divine order, see themselves as collaborators. Communal living is a part of it. And community, cooperation, collaboration, and communal living. But we have moved away from that when we live among Europeans and Americans. We have adopted, we've wanted to resign ourselves because we want to assimilate and we want to acculturate into what is not ours. And we pick up bad habits and we think it's cool and we want to look like them and belong to them. And the more we do that, the more we lose ourselves. And I really mean lose with a capital L.
Yep.
So we got to wake up. And so this DEI thing had to be eventually. It only came about because George Floyd was on camera. If it wasn't for George Floyd, a man being stomped out, strangled to death by a white man who wore a badge, and others looked on, and he just waited him out. If the world hadn't seen that, corporations would not have jumped up to say, hey, I'm not for that. I'm about, let's make it equitable. Let's give people a chance. But you know what I realized, and you can look it up. Black folks, especially black men, we were not the ones who truly benefited from DEI. White women did the most.
Yes, that's a fact.
Right? And then as you go through the line in terms of demographics, there are other groups well ahead of the line before we got to us.
And we did the fighting.
Yeah, but like in everything else, we do the fighting and other groups come and step on us and are leveraged above us.
Yes.
So we have to wake up and understand, as my friend Sean Duff says all the time, there are no cavalries coming over to rescue us.
Right.
We are the ones that we waited for. And so we got to join hands and recognize that it's not about kumbaya and begging for permission. It's about taking our rightful place. And part of that means, it's so funny. We can create the businesses and the jobs if we support each other.
Yep. That's factual.
Yeah, if we remove, white folks love everything that we produce, yet they hate us.
Yep.
Right? If they had a day without black culture, black food, black energy, black spirit, everything around them, they would die of boredom.
Well, that's happening anyway.
So why can't we? I mean, even if for one day we say we're not going to shop in that place, we can't even do that. We're like, oh, I got to go get that. I got to go get this.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean these companies are turning back this whole DEI thing? I think Costco is one of the few companies who said, no, we're not playing that. But you have the Targets and the other companies that are saying, nah, yeah, we so happy. All they're saying is, God damn, thank you. I got reason now to justify why I can't do this. And then they're sending out notices to say, by the way, if you notice that people are using hate language and talking about DEI where you are, you're protected. You can report them discreetly, and you're, as a whistleblower, you're protected. What they're saying to white people is, if you see someone in HR and they're black and they hire a black person, call on them. Because guess what? Black folks are being given opportunities because of DEI. They haven't earned it. White people, though, have earned theirs through merit. Really?
I think that all of that, what they're trying to unglue, I mean, it's definitely going to be a major, major problem, because I think where the problem stems from is something that you mentioned before. And that is, unless we come together, that does not matter. But as long as there's separatism, the separatism is causing the actual issue, because there's so many people that's trying to create 35 different lanes instead of creating that one lane of coming together, unifying, building communities, having your own, and telling them to go straight to you nowhere. Because they need the black dollar, they need the black people. We don't need them. But we got a lot of folk that are still selling that false propaganda, that's doing they're doing the gatekeeping. It's the gatekeepers that we have to make sure that we are not only knowing who they are, but we have to make sure that we stay aware of who they are, because the gatekeepers are going to continue to cause the problem.
Charles, I see a lot of people celebrating what we call heroes and sheroes. People in our community, we make them celebrity status, and we chasing the wrong things. We are always chasing the wrong things. And part of that is to some extent, it's not our fault. We've been for so long deprived of opportunities. We've been hungry. We grew up, a lot of brothers and sisters, without things. And so the first opportunity they get to ring a bell and say, I acquired it, here I am, look what I'm driving, look what I bought, I can afford it. Oh, I'm smoking the same cancer, I'm drinking the same spirits as my white counterparts. And they think that's great to gloat about bullshit. Pardon my French. You can edit that out.
But it's true.
But when they get to this space, our brothers and sisters, we have to recognize that this culture has done a number on us, and it's taken hundreds of years. It's not going to be reversed overnight, Charles.
Nope.
But we have to hold our people accountable. So I say this to say that recently, this whole Diddy thing, and I lost friends as a result of that, because, Dr. Umar says, oh, well, we can't castigate and we can't try in the public court, and we can't say that Diddy did this because white people do. My thing is this: white men shouldn't be allowed to get away, and we need to hold them accountable.
Right.
And part of what we do is we don't support or vote or spend our money when they get damned doing the wrong thing and they walk. Mm-hmm. But because the white guy did it, doesn't give us allowance to allow our own people to turn on our community and do it.
You're exactly right.
If you have a daughter or a mother or a sister, how dare you think it's okay to abuse her, to drug her, to take advantage of her?
Right.
Or a brother too, or a son. The point I'm making is, it doesn't matter how much money you make. One young man I know says, intern for Diddy, man, he's sharp. Diddy's is, and I'm like, brother, being rich doesn't permit you being filthy.
Oof.
And it doesn't matter if you're doing it to someone else, but especially when you're doing it to people of your own. Mm-hmm. And we have to hold our own accountable. So if we helped you to become who you are in terms of your celebrating who you are, then we have a right to pull away and say, hey, man, nah. What kind of hypocrisy is it for us to say that we are a people that's about just and righteousness? And yes, we want to hold them accountable. And if they get away, we're saying, well, then we should get away. Nah, it's got to stop somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we may not have the power of locus to go outside of our own to tell the man of another persuasion who is in power how to mete out the law on his own people.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to agree with it.
No.
For him, nor for us. And wherever we have the power to change that, then we should enact that change. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, you know, that kind of exploitation is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But you know, for some people, as you say, they actually look at it as like this thing of endearment, which I find to be totally disgusting. Because if it's my niece or nephew and something like that's going on, if they want to be slow about the justice part of that, I'm not going to be, because you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. There's no way that these people should be allowed to get away with coming to our communities and exploiting these young people the way they are, because they are, I mean, like, come to find out, I just could not, at first, I'm gonna be honest, I could not even imagine or believe that something like that was happening. But now, come to find out, this is something that came from those folk, as you said before. They started it. Now they want to do it. Why? I do not know.
Yeah.
That's
this is reportedly commonplace in high places in the entertainment industry and at high levels in sports too. Yes. And a lot of the super macho fellas that you see walking around donning the kingship that we give to them are playing this game.
Yep. You're 500% correct. You're 500% correct. So, with that being said, is there anything else other than, anything else that you'd like to leave with the audience tonight, including those that want to be potential clients of yours, how they can contact you, how do they follow you on social media?
Thank you. I don't know if in your notes after the program has been aired and you do your recording, if you actually do leave links. But if you do, then I'm happy to drop a few in there that you can leave. But easy way is to go to VIP Transformative Living. That's my website, right? VIPtransformativeliving.com. And you'll see my social media handles there, but you'll also see opportunities to book a call with me. And I would say, let me offer this. If you are a man of color, and for your audiences, I will add a couple of color, a black or brown man and woman of color who wants to have one gifted session with me, 1 hour. Do so. Charles, when are you gonna post the recording? How soon or how long from now?
It's going.
Oh, okay. I would say within a 7-day period, if folks get into my site and book a free call with me, get on the calendar, I will give them a session to work on their issues with me. And all I'm saying is, if you get value out of the session, if I help you move forward and have some strategic insight on your next step, then we can talk about how we can work together beyond that. But this is a gift, and seize it, because it's not going to stay open for long. Again, VIPtransformativeliving.com. My email directly, and I'm going to give you Wayne Dawson. That's DWAYNE. It's showing up right here. DAWSON at VIP transformativeliving.com. That's the email. Shoot me an email asking for a gifted session, and I'll send you the link. You book something. We got to do it fast because I don't have unlimited time nor resources. And we'll get you in. 1 hour session. Again, couples are very important to me, and I'm making a concerted effort this year to build back Black families. I believe if you can keep the family whole, then you can go out and do wonders with the community, the society, and the places of work and business that you belong to. The Black family is fractured more than it has ever been, and that's systematic. A war has been launched on families. A war has been launched on Black masculinity. And so there's a lot of confusion about role plays, and the family is suffering as a result. We as a people continue to bleed. And so we got to make the family whole again.
Well, I thank you for that. And I really do appreciate you appearing on the show tonight.
Thank you.
This was definitely informative. It was also very, very helpful, especially for those that are listening and maybe have taken some notes. But I will say there's some things that I learned as well, and I definitely appreciate it because, you know, I think we all should want to do better. And I think to do better or to want to do better makes you better. I want to thank you, Coach Wayne, for being here tonight. I want to thank those of you that were watching, especially on the YouTube channel. I would appreciate it if you would please hit the subscriptions button as well as the notifications, where every time we do a show, you'll get a chance to catch the show live, or you can go back and watch it when you feel like it, or you can also watch all of the old previous shows that are on the channel as well. Thank you again, Coach Wayne. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate everybody for giving us some time this evening to be here. And I ask you all, if you have the time, please join us tomorrow for another great show. Thank you all again, and please have a wonderful evening. Talk to you later, sir.